Neil came here first about 2 years ago, and we agreed to do the exhibition. I thought it was an interesting idea, and we then in effect put it on hold until nearer the time because of our exhibition programme. There wasn't any point in him starting looking through the stores very early on. What Neil wanted to do is examine the processes of what we do, and particularly concentrate on material in store. All our collections are catalogued and they're on computer, and so it's very easy for me to churn out lists of what we've got by simple name, by classification, by whatever. I can do it in any way. And I think Neil had some idea of possibly walking into something like the museum equivalent of B&Q and being able to see everything. But because everything's kept in boxes and in various rooms, it doesn't necessarily work like that. That's not a very effective way of doing it. So I started Neil off with lists of all the things we've got, all the simple names, what we would call a simple name of everything we've got, just to whet his appetite, because there were thousands of names of things, and give him some idea of the flavour of what we got. And then we started looking at some of those, me working with Neil in the stores, pulling things out. And what happened quite soon was that Neil would open one box because it had a helmet in, and then he'd find other things in the same box and say, oh well, that I hadn't thought about that, but that's really good. And he became I almost began to be able to prophesy what he would pick when he opened a box, because he became very interested in not only in the process, but in certain kinds of objects, small objects that showed accounting, objects that had identification on them that wasn't necessarily relevant to their meaning. So we worked together for some time, and eventually Neil worked in the stores on his own, which is something that we don't allow lightly, but he's so good with collections, and he was so impeccable about handling them properly that it made sense. I don't have a lot of time to develop exhibitions, and to be honest, the conversations that I had time for with Neil were far more valuable for me than what he was doing in the stores. So he went through the stores on his own in the end. There are several stores, both here and out store, and when he had chosen what he wanted, we, just before the exhibition opened, because there's quite a limited amount of space here for exhibition preparation, a group of us went over with the van to our out store and bought all the large stuff back